Thank you so much, Bobby. Everyone, thank you so much and welcome to this special Power Hour workshop. I am presenting today's topic of managing the virtual audience. And so we should have a lot of fun in the information of my experience that I have. I am a certified project manager. I do have my PMP certification. I also am working on my cruise line certification as a travel agent. I'm preparing for my retirement. Thank you. And I have also hosted a number of 3 and 4 day conference events for both Toastmasters and for travel training. So I think I have a little bit of experience to help guide you in how to host and manage your virtual audience. Our agenda will cover a couple of topics: the purpose, audience, facilities, pre preparation, the event, the post event, and questions and answers. So feel free to jump in and ask questions. We've all had that opportunity to plan a meeting. And of course, when you're preparing for your meeting, there's always this: why do we need the meeting? What's the purpose of the meeting? And then Toastmasters, we have the inform, the humorous, research, give a status. A meeting can cover any topic that you have. The new methodology in project management today is agile, being flexible. And so they now have what's called stand up meetings, upon which these meetings are 15 minutes flat. How many of you would like a 15-minute meeting and still get something accomplished, decided, and you're done? Show of hands. Mm-hmm. I'm right there with you. So I am in full support of this new methodology of Agile. So when we look at putting together our meeting, we're looking at determining the purpose, whether or not it's the training, town hall, or initial announcements. For me, when I'm planning my meetings to make sure I have the right audience in attendance, I usually make sure that my subject line spells out what the purpose of the meeting is. And then I always put a preliminary agenda. That way, it helps the audience to focus and narrow its scope into: these are the items that we're covering, and these are the decision activities that will be taking place. I find it helps the audience prepare, it helps the speakers prepare. And if you're an attendee, you also may have some concerns, or you may be curious or interested in the points that are being covered. So do consider that. So if you're in an office environment today, make sure or take a new tip and refocus your meeting agendas to at least put 3 points in the preliminary agenda: what you're going to talk about, a call to action, and then what the next steps are, because that helps tremendously setting the expectations for the attendees. Okay. Who is the audience? Well, who needs to be there? You have your presenters. You may not be presenting all of the topics, you may just be the facilitator bringing all the people together. So you need to know: who are the presenters? Who are the subject matter experts? Are there any key or special speakers that are going to be involved? And then within that, now switch and say who's going to be the audience, or who is the audience that need to be in attendance. Are these persons or groups going to be impacted? Will these be decision makers that need to be in attendance? Will these be sideline peoples who are just interested and want to hear what's coming up? So when you're putting your meeting together, you really need to pay attention to: what's the purpose of the meeting, who are the presenters, and then who is the audience that needs to be there. It helps you to really get the right people there. How many of you have been to meetings and about 15 minutes in, the key person that needs to make a decision isn't there, your subject matter person isn't there, or the person with the materials for the meeting isn't there? In most cases, it's always best to ask the audience: one, can we continue on and table this key portion of the meeting to a later time? or do we need to reschedule the entire event? Once you get a consensus, tell the people thank you so much for your time and that you will reschedule immediately. Some people may not mind, others will be annoyed. So just pay attention to the audience. Also, pay attention to what needs to be presented or what is being presented, excuse me. Coordinate with your presenters to make sure that you have the materials in advance that needs to be presented. Ensure that they are aware that they're going to be presenting. There's nothing worse than having a presenter there and then putting them on the spot, as in this case, excuse me, PJ. Hey, PJ, can you now share the status of this upcoming event? PJ's not prepared. She wasn't aware she was going to be the presenter. She may smile and fill in some information, or she may go ahead and say, at this time, the information is not available. Should you be put in that spot, please don't be afraid to say, thank you for the question, but the information is not prepared to share at this time. See how nice that sounds? Better than, I'm not ready. So that's a different way to let the audience know you're not ready, but you were also caught off guard, but in a nice way, you will have it available later. And then also, oh, sorry, I went too fast. If there are breakout sessions that are going to be a part of the event, make sure you coordinate that with your presenter so that you can properly plan for those types of events in advance. Are there any questions, thoughts? How do you feel? Okay, good. So let's look at the facilities in selecting for your audience. You want to make your audience comfortable. Now, prior to COVID, I love having meeting locations that had easy parking, easy access into and out of the building, nice, clean, easy facilities or restroom facilities, and at least a decent water station available or allowing for refreshments. Now that we've gone online, we need to make sure that is using tools that we are all familiar with. I'm not sure about you, but for me, Microsoft Teams is not my friend, but I'm learning to use it. Zoom, my buddy. Skype, I'm becoming very, very familiar with because it is a tool that we are using very heavily at my job. Also, when you're looking at your location, make sure you have the breakout rooms preset. And if you're doing an online breakout rooms, coordinate with the names of those and preset them up in advance if possible, because it makes it easy to arrange as many things in advance prior to trying to do them on the fly of your meeting. And especially if you want to put some special um, decision points in there, or if there's special handouts that needs to go in those particular breakout sessions. Also, make sure your day and time for your audience is very convenient. We have everyone throughout the United States and throughout the world participating in all of our meetings. So while it's comfortable for the facilitator who's on the West Coast, on the East Coast and overseas, we need to find that middle ground that's comfortable for everyone. If you're still using conference numbers, make sure that it's very clear. And if you're using a new tool, such as Microsoft Teams, consider adding extra instructions for people to understand how to use that tool and suggest that they try it out a day in advance or an hour in advance. Oh, sorry. And then also when you're scheduling it, make sure it's not a day that the lawn service, the pool guy, the UPS guy, regular day, isn't appearing and your doorbell isn't being rang to where the dogs are on guard to start barking. I've had that happen too many times, and then we've heard it on the other end as well. For your media tools, make sure that you have a really good, strong Wi-Fi signal that you're using. Your company guidelines will recommend what's best. If you're going to also be taking notes, I find OneNote and Evernote are some of the best for recording and taking notes. Some people have really good shorthand that they use. for capturing their notes, and then they go back and translate it later to fill in all the gaps because it matches to the discussion points of the agenda. And then I put a side note at the top. If you are using new media tools, consider practicing it with your peers. Do a demo with your peers so you get used to the buttons and clicking on the different options and functions, and you understand how they work so that during the meeting, you don't disconnect the entire audience. And that's one way of preparing for the meeting. Now, the actual preparation, pretty standard here. Your agenda, your handouts, the breakout rooms, the website, and hyperlinks. I find that if you can get all of the hyperlinks and websites launched and ready to go prior to the meeting, you don't have to sit and wait for it to spin and then pop up. You'll already have it uploaded and ready to go. Also, make sure you have your scribe and your timer person identified because it helps out a lot with controlling the audience, because then you can focus and listen in to the audience if there are any concerns or if the tone of the meeting changes and it needs to be addressed. As in this case where we're using an audio recording, it is best to make sure that you always use a disclaimer and announce at the beginning of the meeting that the meeting is being recorded, and let people have the option of how they wish to continue to participate. And then, of course, at the end, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes you get that little beep in your headset that you forgot to charge it. I highly recommend charging your headsets and your speakers if you're using external Wi-Fi speakers, Bluetooth speakers in advance. Makes a difference. Yes, Bobby.
So we have a question from the chat from
Yes.
Maria, and she's saying, how long would be the time for the beginning, meaning the introduction, considering a 1 hour presentation?
3 minutes, 2 minutes on the high side.
Okay.
And I can go through that and setting up that in regards to everyone. We're going to go around the room. We're going to start with PJ. PJ, if you can just give us your name and which department you're representing. And then from there, call out the next person so that everyone is prepared, and ask everyone to take themselves off mute so that everyone knows they're going to participate in the introduction. Does that help, Maria? Okay, wonderful. Okay. And again, this is an example of what I typically do for my agendas. It just helps everyone to understand what we're going to do, what we're going to accomplish, and any discussion points. Now, you get everything else prepared, but don't forget to prepare it yourself. I like to make sure that I have my water available. And in the mornings, if I'm having a very early morning, hot tea is very soothing and calming. Some people need the coffee. Don't forget to stand, stretch, and breathe right before your meeting starts so that you can get that extra relaxation, and then you can project energy and preparation and readiness to participate. Make sure that your body is just relaxed. You silenced all phones. In some cases, I have gone so far is to disconnect the phones from the phone jacks. Just, I don't know, there are certain days when the phone is ringing and every solicitor in the state is calling. So don't be afraid to unplug them. Also consider closing your office doors if you're still working from home. In this case, for examples, I've thrown all the dogs in the other room just because one's a heavy breather and the other one likes to whine. So everyone knows what they have as far as background noise. So just consider what you need to do such that your audience has a wonderful experience in being on the phone. Today, they are a bit more forgiving when there's crying babies and dogs, but let's try to set the environment in advance. Of course, preparing your materials, we are pretty familiar with all of these activities. I think I've covered them. Review, have your materials ready for the meeting, rehearse the flow, determine any breaks, ensure your links are working, and distribute the meeting materials if possible in advance because sometimes the network connections aren't stable. And in some cases, your host can continue on while you, if you're the presenter, can get back online. Okay. So now we're at the meeting. And here we go. I always like to open with a greeting and announcement for the meeting time to start. I'll always greetings, welcome everyone. We'll get started shortly. Thank you so much for your attendance. Please make sure you have your lines mute. We'll do introductions in a moment. Happy, uplifting, and they're excited and ready to go. Once you do get started, and that should only take if you're introducing a whole new group, especially if they've never met each other, you don't have to do the introductions every time. But if you've got, this is the first time, introductions is always nice. But if this is now a standard rotating meeting, you can skip the introductions, but confirm that your key representatives that are needed are in attendance for the meeting. Review the agenda helps to set the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the core items that we need to accomplish today. So let's get started. And then you launch into your meeting. Also make sure that you're, able to address your chat room items that are there, and then 5 minutes marker that's left in the meeting. Make sure you summarize the high level accomplishments, announce any future topic meetings, what to expect as far as meeting notes, and you thank the audience for their attendance and participation. My closing standard is, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our meeting. Thank you so much for your attendance. This now concludes our call. That also signals the recording to stop at that point if anyone is recording, so they know the meeting has officially ended and then everyone can start the beeps, okay? So let's address the fun part. It's the audience. How do you control those attendees? If it is a brand new group, consider an icebreaker event. For my travel agents, we did something fun. We had everyone identify themselves using their first name. So my first name is Cynthia. So with the C, I picked a country that I was wanted to be known as. So I picked Cuba. Dr. Ann A, I forgot, what did she pick? Oh God, she picked Aruba. And so throughout the meeting, as far as fun, that was an icebreaker event because it was just something that people were familiar with, and we got just shake the ice. If this is a standing meeting, everyone should be comfortable. It doesn't hurt to ask, how was the weekend overall? Did everyone have a wonderful holiday celebration? Anyone wish to share? I tend to take PG's advice, count to 20, and then move on to the next topic. PJ shared that with me because I tend to be very non-patient. I wasn't very patient in allowing people an opportunity to answer the question. So PJ, thank you so much for that wonderful tip of ask the question, count to 20, 15 to 20, and then move on. Because you're allowing time for people to think about the question, think about an answer, and then, okay, no one wished to share. That's fine. Let's continue on with the agenda and the meeting. That way, no one feels out of sorts. I like to make sure that when I have participants in the meeting, we always tend to have those wild wall flowers, those people that stand along the wall and they won't say anything throughout the meeting. They'll come to meeting to meeting to meeting and will never say a word. So we want to make sure that those persons or each person has an opportunity to speak. I tend to make sure that in my agenda, I set up questions that may be pertinent for those particular persons, and call their name first before I ask the question. One, it alerts them I'm about to ask the question, and they can focus on what's about to happen. In this case, Warren, I see that you're preparing your presentation for next month. Is it just about ready? One, Warren heard his name. He was able to look up, and now he's able to answer the question instead of I'm sorry, what did you ask? So it makes it really nice if you can take the time to get to announce the person's name and then ask the question. I typically also would go around the room and ask everyone, does anyone else, Bobby, do you have anything else to add on this topic? Marie, do you have anything else that you need to add? Is there any other concerns that need to be addressed on the floor? Excuse me. It is now a moment of speak now or forever hold your peace, but I will also go around at the end of the meeting and ask each person, are there any other issues outstanding that we need to raise? That way they have one more opportunity to speak up and be participative in the meeting. Now, in the situation, one moment, please. Thank you. Now, in the case where you have a runaway topic or a runaway person in your meeting, and we've all had that experience where a topic has, it's very, someone is very passionate, it has a very high impact, and there are some key risks or decisions that need to be made about this topic. If the topic appears to be leading towards a discussion, it doesn't hurt to say or interject, excuse me, everyone. I see that we're really driving this topic. Are we certain that we can come to a decision, or do we need to schedule a separate topic meeting to allow more time for the focus of this topic? One, it gives everybody a break to cool off, make a decision if they can or cannot come to a final decision within the next minute or less. And if not, put them in agreement to schedule a topic meeting on the side. That way, when we get to that topic meeting, it's specific on that topic and everyone can add value at that time. However, in the case where you have a person that's just nonstop, I want to be in control because I'm really certain that this is this and this, and they just keep going, and you're waiting for that one moment when they take a break. It's almost like you're waiting to do a filibuster, right? You want them to breathe just for a second so you can say, Warren, thank you so much for your key points. May we schedule this topic to address your concerns in greater detail? And it gives them a moment for them to acknowledge that you've acknowledged them, that they've really gotten away with the topic, but it's not fair to the audience. Now, unfortunately, I do have a other trick that I tend to do when I'm on the cell phone. How many of you have heard that strange beep as though the phone is clicking in and there's another click or a call coming in? If you hit your pound sign or star, just real short taps to break the call up, everyone will stop, and then that is your other opportunity to interject, to get in and say, okay, I understand that you're concerned about this topic. Can we reschedule it at a later time so we can continue with the meeting as we have it? Give it a try on your friends, see how it feels or how comfortable you are with doing it. Not everyone is comfortable with interrupting someone when they're talking. It takes time to develop that confidence to say, excuse me, so and so, to really talk a little bit above them, but very politely and very calmly is another way of doing that in order to break that passion. Okay? Yes, Bobby.
So we have a couple of questions in the chat, if this is a good time.
Yes.
Okay, so from Laura Lee, how do you handle a participant that seems to be wiggling and moving around, moving about a lot, which is extremely distracting?
It in one sense, you don't want to call them out, but you do need to call them out. And it's very politely in a sense of saying, excuse me, Laura Lee, I see that your screen is moving. You may have some activities going on. Would you like to turn off your visual at this time? So put put the blame on the camera is moving, even though they're the ones that's actually moving. So just announce, hey, Cynthia, I see your screen is dancing a lot. You might want to turn your camera off for a moment while you make whatever adjustments are needed. Feel free to join us as possible, as soon as possible. Okay.
So I'll just add a follow on to that then. Would you ever have yourself as host or your co-host, would you turn off their video if they're moving around too much or something distracting is going on in the background?
If you do have a co-host and they see it as well, you and the co-host can set some ground rules that if someone is dancing about extra noise and it's highlighted, let the co-host send them a one-on-one personal chat. Sorry, we need to mute you or close your camera. It is distracting at the moment. Please ping me when you are calm and we will reactivate you to join the session.
Okay. And then here's another question from Maria. She says, sometimes for some reason, people would lose their voice, I guess, lose their sound for a few seconds. And what would be a good recommendation for those moments?
It is best if you can have either your co-host or the person who lost the audio to calmly announce, excuse me, I didn't catch the last portion. Would you kindly repeat that last segment again? So it doesn't hurt to ask, I'm sorry, I missed the last segment, or it seems the audio was interrupted. Can you please repeat?
Okay, and there's one more part to this question. It says, is convenient as Cynthia did just drinking a little water? I'm not quite sure. Um, Maria, maybe if you want to come off mute, if you wanted to clarify that question a little bit.
It's just to how I say, those moments when there are people drinking water is just to recuperate the voice again.
Yes, for some of us, we speak so much, our voice gets dry, our throat gets dry, and we need some type of moisture. For most people, they will get a very clear bottle of water. And I've seen some people go so far as to pull the label off the water bottle just to not do advertisements. But everyone is understanding when you need a drink of water. Coffee, but water, everyone understands that. They're a little more tolerant for the water.
So Cynthia, do you also recommend that you like set ground rules for behavior in the meeting at the beginning of the meeting? And
Yes.
how would you do that? Would you have a slide or something, or would you just make a list of, what rules would you normally want to see in a meeting, especially a
No,
virtual meeting?
especially for a virtual meeting. Very good, Bobby. And I think that's the one that's missing out of this particular deck to add in. We typically call those house rules is the best way to do it. When you come into an event, there's typically house rules. In other words, we will take breaks. If you feel you need to leave the meeting, please turn your camera off first and then leave your seat. If you need to have a side conversation with someone, please put yourself on mute or keep yourself on mute until you're ready to ask a question. That way, it makes it easy for everyone to know what the guidelines are. So it's one, ask everyone to please use the mute button unless they're speaking. Number two, silence all cell phones and other phones because no matter what, your phone is going to go off and you forget to turn it. Number three, in a sense of if you need to address something, please turn your camera off and then step to the side to address it. That way, as in the case of the question from Laura Lee, if they're bouncing and distracting, it does become distracting. And that way you've set ground rules. So when the co-host does go and shuts off their camera, they can't say that they weren't warned. Also, when speaking, make sure that they take their time to speak slowly and clearly do the audio transmissions to make sure that they are heard clearly, and make sure that any other side noise is very silenced as well.
So one more follow-up from Maria. Is it convenient to have candy in your mouth in case there's a certain dryness in your mouth? What's your feeling on that?
If you can put something the size of a Tic Tac, yes. Otherwise, no. Because your mouth will be trying to do one of these numbers, and you'll be sucking on it just at the point. You see how distracting that was? But if something as small as a Tic Tac would probably work best, that's why I'm thinking the water, breathe, relax, and then launch into. But I understand you may need a lozenger to soothe your throat while speaking. So as long as you don't do the Tootsie Roll where 3 licks and you crunch into it, I don't know about you, but you're sucking on the lozenger and then all of a sudden you're crunching it because you couldn't resist the biting into it. Okay? How we doing?
We're doing good. That's the end. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I see. Let's see. Nope, I think that's all we have right now for questions.
Okay, fabulous. So when we're doing the post event, and those were great questions. I hope I gave you good examples to reference, everyone. So with the post event, make sure you schedule time with your scribe to go over the meeting agendas, look at the action items and the tracking. Also make note of the attendees who attended, who was most active, and then also what their key roles were so that you'll have it for reference for a future meeting. So if someone is looking for an expertise of someone, let's say in the marketing department, and you had a good marketing representative participated in your meeting, you could refer that person out or make introductions for that particular person. Also, make sure you schedule your topic meetings as needed and make sure that those key representatives that were very passionate about that topic are in attendance as well for those particular meetings. And then if your speaker has handouts, make sure to ask them if they have any updated materials that they needed to share to make any adjustments, and then distribute your meeting notes for 2 days at the most on the outside. I'll have this deck updated because I want to get it out to you because I want to add that one slide that Bobby asked in regards to housekeeping rules to set in there, okay? So for more questions and answers, are there any others that you would like to share or address? I didn't quote some of my sources that were shared with me from some of the Speakers Association and virtual audience tips. They want to make sure that we know everyone is doing Zoom meetings, but make sure that you take the time to stretch, have a little humor, relax and breathe. The meetings can be intense, but sometimes you just need a moment to step away before you step back into the discussion points. So if you yourself feel that the meeting is just a bit too much to handle, don't be afraid to put yourself on mute, turn your camera off, and then just stand up and step away to where you can just take that quick break because you can still hear the meeting topic going on. They just don't need to see you at that moment because you may need a break. Okay.
Okay.
Bobby, are there any other questions that have come up yet?
Okay, this one is totally me. It's how do you deal with reflection in eyeglasses? Do you have hints on how to do the lighting? Which I totally need that. Yours
I
look
know
so
we
much
both
better.
do.
I can see your eyes, but mine have nothing but glare.
Okay. Supposedly, there is a product online, and I haven't found it yet, that you're supposed to be able to put a film across your glasses to take half the glare off, because when we ordered our glasses from the optometrist, they were supposed to put the anti-glare in. But the anti-glare did not account for the new ring lights that are out on the market. So that's the problem we have today. So in this case, what I'm done is take your ring light and adjust it to where it sits above you, and then it sits up and then over your head to where the glare isn't quite there. And I think I just put the glare on, but you do have to play with it a little bit to get the right focus. But I understand where you're coming from. The other item to consider is to put your contact lenses in. I have a pair, and then put your readers on. If you do that and you're presenting, put the contact lenses in 2 hours before your event so your eyes won't be yelling at you. What are you doing to us? You haven't worn these in a while. Any other questions?
I don't see any others in the chat. Perhaps
Okay.
people have something. The one I'm thinking about is, you have people in the audience, in a virtual audience, and you touched on this earlier, the people who want to keep talking and talking and talking. And when you're in person, you can do things in person, like go and stand by them, or there's different ways to deal with it in person compared to online. Because online, whatever you do is visible. So what can you go more on how to control those people?
It is definitely a challenge, and it is the case of, you want to be respectful, because the rest of the audience they want to speak up, but they want to see how you are going to handle that one person. So then it becomes a matter of, hello, hello, hello is one way to get the attention, because they're yelling, well, who's yelling hello? And then that should break it just enough for you to jump in and say, I'm so sorry that you feel passionate about this topic, but we really do need to continue on. And I want to make sure we get the rest of the points. That's a soft, is not as harsh, but it's one way of breaking up the meeting. And hello is, who's yelling hello? You see what I'm saying? So something as simple as that, to where you increase each time you say hello. Did everyone feel that when I changed the tone into that, and you took a moment to stop and look up?
And then here's another one, Cynthia. So how do you handle calling on participants when there's a talk or speech that's interactive? Because, and like, you have your slides up now, so we can't see everyone. At least I can't. I can only see, half the group here. So how do you handle calling on participants?
Well, the trick that I've learned to do is to do a screenshot capture prior to, and then put it back on the other slide. If not, go ahead and take the camera. I know I'm cheating. You take your cell phone, take a picture of it. And in this case, because I haven't quite gotten a handle of this, and you're supposed to be able to split your screens or see all slides. But I usually take my cell phone at the start of the meeting of who all's there, as well as on the side. As you were calling out people's names, I was writing them on the side so I could use them as examples. And then that way it's easy for me to go back, open up my camera, and look at who the pictures are, and enhance that or enlarge it so I can see who the participants are.
Okay, so do you use the participant window, a list of names in that window?
I do. I try to scroll up and down.
Okay.
And if you do go over to the far right of your screen, there is a box that lets you set your view. Instead of just a single bar, it will let you put up multiples on there. And then you can easily see who all is in attendance. But I tend to write down the names because it makes it a lot of fun.
Okay. So another question then from Maria. is it possible to distinguish when people are not paying attention to the meeting because they're chatting?
No and yes. It depends on if they are doing the engaging nod as though they're writing notes in agreement to what's being said. And we've seen that where the audience is trying to take notes, they're in agreement, and then they look up, see where we are, and then continue to take notes. Versus someone who may be looking clear over here, they're working on something, and they haven't acknowledged at all. And so to get them back into the audience, it might be something as simple as, hey, Cynthia, I see that you're taking some notes. Is there any other points that we can clarify? Maybe just give them a soft question and help get them back into participating.
Okay,
From there, they will then re-engage with the eye contact because it's one thing for people, they want to take notes, they're busy writing, they're looking up, they want to watch the screen, but to the point you've mentioned, they're way over here going off, and so that's one way of doing it. It's just asking a soft question. Cynthia, I see you're taking some notes. Are there any points you need me to re-review for you? And it's like, oh, they ratted me out. She caught me. So but it's a soft way of doing it to get them back engaged. Okay.
okay. So there's a couple of our attendees here have comments about limiting conversation. So let's start with PJ. You have a comment on limiting conversations?
I do. Something to consider is at the beginning of your presentation, when you're sharing with the audience, you know, where the facilities are and the parking lot and whatever else is being shared, share with them that we want to have questions and answers, but we have a large audience and we're limited on time. So keep your questions succinct so that you have a pre-warning that they're going to get interrupted if you go forever.
Yes.
All
Oh,
right.
yes.
And Mary Lee also has a couple of suggestions. So Mary Lee,
Thank you, Bobby. Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, thank you. I agree with PJ. During that time when you're talking about house rules, I have mentioned that if anyone is talking too long or dominating the conversation, I will type into the chat box to them a safe word that indicates they should stop talking and let someone else speak. And that is I've used the word eggplant. So if they see eggplant come on their screen, they're supposed to stop talking. Also, I've used the reminder. I just type in the numbers 30/70, and that is to remind the speaker that they are to speak 30% of the time and let the other people speak 70% of the time. And usually when these are pre-arranged cues, and when they see them, they get the message and will stop talking.
I
Thank you.
love that eggplant. That is very good, Mary Lee. I love that. And that was one of my favorite vegetables.
So one more here. Kathy is asking, is there follow-up information for this group? Like the best, which are the best handouts or web links?
Are you asking me?
Well, Kathy, you put your question in the chat.
Right. I was wondering which is the best method for follow-up information to the group. Do you tell them, check out these web links, or do you actually get things together, like what I would call a handout or email together to send it out to the group? Which is the best way to follow up on that?
This presentation will be finished and updated because I need to add that house rule slides in there, which was very good with both you ladies' tips in there. So I would say, Bobby, probably by where are we? Monday, by Thursday, we should have this out to this particular group in attendance for your review. Okay, will that work for you, Kathy?
Okay.
Okay. And Laura Lee, I'm going to ask if be sure you're unmuted, and would you please share about what your comment was in the chat about not being able to see a person's face?
I think online, people like to see the person like as clear as possible, but I've seen some people that come in, they have a light way over on the side, or you can barely see like even half of their face. Would that be house rules that you'd have at the beginning, or the person that's running the meeting, or maybe a sergeant at arms?
That could be part of the house rules, and that is why I highly recommend doing a test or demo in advance. So for me, I know which light ring works best in which room with which computer and which webcam. I have right now, today's presentation, I'm using the camera on the laptop instead of the individual webcam that I could move around. That one works great if I'm standing up. This one is perfect for right here. So I have cue cards throughout the house that says on the patio, in this room, in this office, which tools work best. So it's documented, because when in my Toastmaster meetings, I ask the audience, how do I look with this light? And they can give me, and I make the notes and adjustments. And so that's one of those, set up your cue cards, practice, see what you look like, and then give it a shot and go from there. But absolutely, lighting test. I'll put that in the house rules as well.
I was actually referring to a participant if we can't see them very well, if how we're going to work. If I'm giving a speech, I want to see facial affect, or maybe there's some interaction, I can barely see their face.
Keep in mind that the participants may have limited light, but you can send them a nice chat that says, hey, I like to see more of your beautiful smile. Can you adjust your camera? Okay. And that should encourage them to consider maybe making the adjustments. Okay.
Okay. I don't see any other comments in the chat, so we'll just consider this open mic at this point. If anyone has any additional comments or questions, feel free to unmute and jump in.
While they're considering their questions, our next upcoming event is on May 17th, Best Practices for Virtual Meetings at Work, and our presenter will be Warren Folkert, who is a participant in today's meeting. Yay, Warren!
Well,
Hi.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Cynthia, I think Nikki had her hand up.
Yes. One thing that I would add, when you were talking before about being able to see people, last week I was Topics Master, and I had slides prepared to help prompt what we were doing for our table topics questions. When you do table topics, you really want to see everybody in the gallery, and they need to be able to see whoever the timer is, who will be muted, so that their picture doesn't necessarily pop up. So the first thing I did was I told them, look for the little vertical line that's between the slides and the picture, and then take that and they could slide it over to give more real estate to the pictures, so that everyone was in the view, and also to go up to the view and they could do side-by-side gallery, and that made sure to show all the pictures so that we could see everybody. So if you're very familiar with your presentation software, at the beginning, if you want everyone to be able to see everyone else, you could walk them through that, even though they probably should know that from before. That way they think like, oh yeah, do that now.
Actually, I just did that, and yes, it works. So now I see everybody.
Me too.
Another tip that I do is that I have my own Zoom account. It's not a paid one, but it's enough for just me, and sometimes I Zoom with my father and sister. But what I do is I'll start a Zoom meeting all by myself, and then I'll practice sharing my slides and adjusting things so that I could see how the software works with me, so that I know what to tell people.
I've done that as well. I've logged in on my PC, on my iPhone, and my iPad, so that there's 3 of me to have an audience, and then I test it all out.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Also, having a nice background makes a difference. I like Warren's, and for me, I'm always afraid that I'll fade into the image or I'll disappear. So that's something to consider when setting up your backgrounds when you're doing your Zoom meetings. Make sure you have the best image that won't lose you when you move forward or backwards or making any adjustments in your camera. I know that was one of the things that a lot of us experienced when Zoom was first launching last year. How come half of my head is gone? There you, ooh, very nice, Laura Lee. I like that one.
Yes.
Okay, here's one more from Warren. Is it an issue when most participants have video while there may be a few others that don't have video for technical reasons?
Video, as in using the video to record.
You see the face of most participants, but there are some participants that you'd like to see their smiling face, but and this is a situation we have at work for a Zoom meeting. I don't want to go into, it's a long explanation as to why it is, but basically some people, when they go into the Zoom meeting at work, because of the way they're connecting into work, there isn't a video to be in the, they don't have the capability to put video into the transmission. And so, and the reason I asked this is one time I was in one of these meetings and the one chairing the meeting was calling on everybody to turn their camera on. And interestingly enough, it was a discussion on diversity, and well, we have diverse connections, so embrace the diversity. But I'm just asking, is that an issue for a presenter as you see it, Cynthia?
It can be, if yes and no. Some people are not comfortable with the way their surroundings are showing in their camera. Remember, we have been comfortable leaving our homes, going to work, and being in our work environment, and now we come home and we're protected in our homes. Now we have to share our homes with the world and with work. So for some, they are able to put together a background, a wall, a half a door, or select an image that's stable. And I like Vicky's where she's got a blurred background going on. For others, they're just not comfortable yet sharing what's going on in their homes. And for others, that self-image of, oh my God, I look fat. Oh my God, is this showing on my face? I'm not comfortable. Do I have the right clothes on? It's still that self-confidence of what do I look like on the camera. So until someone, hey, you look great today, great seeing your smiling face, until you get a compliment and realize, oh, they miss me, they like seeing me, that encourages them to want to come off of not being seen. It's like the kids that are the wallflower, until they get asked to dance and just have a good time dancing, they'll stay there until someone invites them. So it becomes the, hey, we like to see your face. Thank you for sharing if you're able to share. Some of them may not have a stable enough connection to pull it off, or they're in an environment where it's just not conducive to show the background. But for all professionals, I know most work environments have suggested that people put together a nice background or select a wall or a painting or a picture. Now, so here's something I've done. I like to find really colorful print shower curtains. Oh my God, I think it's right here. So I'm gonna put this up and you tell me what you think, okay? You see this print? It works. It could be a background. Okay,
Busy.
now I'm gonna try something. So just bear with me here. You see how that looks as a background? It just takes a matter of getting creative to find a background if someone is not comfortable sharing their environment. Okay,
Okay, Cynthia, we're almost out of time, but there's
right ahead.
two more questions that came in from Maria. One is it convenient that the speaker would ask questions to the audience to verify there was a clear presentation like a teacher would do with students? Or is that like too informal of a way to conclude a session?
If the speaker doesn't feel that they've met all of the objectives, then I don't see why they should not ask the question in regards to everyone. Thank you for your participation. Do we have consensus that we've achieved the goals? Everyone is ready to approve this document and we're ready to move to the next step. Are we all in agreement? So I don't see a problem asking the question that way. If you're looking to get an evaluation of how I, as a presenter, did, then that becomes a sending a personal email directly to those particular individuals to ask, hey, can I get some feedback on how was my presentation? What did you think? Do you have any feedback to offer? Okay.
Okay. And then one more question. So to be connected with Zoom, you could do it by 3 ways: joining on the link, opening the Zoom account, and then entering Zoom using the ID of the meeting and the passcode. And which way gives best results to be connected to the meeting?
If you can provide the link, it is the quickest and fastest way possible for someone to make sure they're joining the meeting. Because if they have to open up the email, open up Zoom, wait for Zoom to open, then come back and find the email to scroll down to find the ID button, that's just a lot of back and forth. Where if you put the link in, it makes it easy for it to just fire off and take them directly into the meeting session. If you think you're going to have uninvited guests, or someone may have forwarded part of the link to someone that should not be in attendance of the meeting, you still have the opportunity to not allow them into the meeting or disconnect them from the meeting. Okay?
Okay. And Cynthia, I think we are pretty much out of time. So you mentioned earlier that Showtime meets on 2nd and 4th Monday nights and at 6:30 till 8 o'clock. And this last slide here at the bottom had the Showtime website. So showtime.toastmastersclubs.org is the Showtime website. So thank you, Cynthia. I appreciate your presentation tonight.
Thank you so much. I had a blast. Thank you.
And I'll stop the recording now as well.